Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's Full Press Radio Live. It is Thursday, December the 22nd. We are just one day away from Festivus, of course, but obviously the holiday weekend coming up this weekend. You have Christmas Eve Saturday, and really it's like an NFL Sunday because I believe we get 11 games, John. So it's going to be a fun weekend. And for those of you up in, well, basically anything above the Mason-Dixon line, stay warm because apparently, John, you're supposed to get some pretty frigid cold weather over the next few days.
Yeah, here in the Northeast and New England, we're going to get a lot of rain, which is better than a lot of snow. When you reach 59 years old, you really don't want a white Christmas. If you're like 9 years old, you want a white Christmas. But when you get to an advanced age, rain is better than snow, but then it's going to be very, very cold. The Patriots play the Bengals on Saturday. Like you said, there's 11 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. And of course, you get the Monday night game and the Thursday night game. So it's a full week, obviously, as we head down to the home stretch. The weird thing is, Ian, on Christmas Day, which now the NFL is competing with the NBA, because Christmas Day was always an NBA day, but the way it's fallen the last couple of years, they put games on Christmas Day. There's 3 games Sunday, and the combined record of the 6 teams playing is 32-52, and only the Miami Dolphins of the 6 teams playing on Christmas Day has a winning record at 8-6. So not great scheduling by the NFL.
At least we're getting Tom Brady
and Aaron Rodgers,
and
right?
Aaron
We're still going to get to see the old quarterback. Yeah.
But look, I mean, yeah, I like it. I've always been a proponent of. I'd rather do away with Thursday and make more, during the certain time of the year, obviously Saturday, but mostly Sunday and Monday games. I mean, Saturday, when college football is kind of full force, it's not a great, thing to obviously try to jam pack a lot of NFL games. But as soon as that college football season essentially ends, they're all over Saturdays, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice way to celebrate the holiday, and I wish. Instead of having Christmas on Christmas Eve on the 24th and 25th, let's just have it on the 4th Saturday and Sunday of every December. That way we can do this every single year. Christmas, football, make it a tradition. But that
would go over real well.
That would really go. Right? That would go over well with the religious folk who.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously, the day has more meaning than just watching football. I joke, of course, but no, actually, really, I would love to have that as Christmas every single year. But it is this year, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, well, as much as I can look forward to any weekend in this particular NFL season, because as I've mentioned before, as someone who is grown up a Patriots fan and also someone who roots for Tom Brady, it's been a very difficult season to say the least. It's been very usually there's always ups and downs, and for the most part for the last 20 some odd years it's been a whole lot of ups. Well, it's been a lot of downs this year, but look, I'm still holding out faith. At 6-8, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers can still make the playoffs because they do lead the division. They just got to win out, and at the end of the day, John, you could finish the season with nearly, between 25 and 30 touchdowns. He's going to be second or third in total yards, and the guy's halfway to 46. So I'm kind of thinking this season has been a struggle, and it reminds me a lot of 2019, where a lot of the things that were being talked about with Brady right now are the same things that were talked about in 2019. Oh, and a lot of it, John, had to do with his stats. And I believe that season he was something like 24-12 touchdown to interception. So, it obviously on paper did not look, great, but as I've been well maintained for a very long time, don't trust the box score. What I saw in 2019 was a guy who was obviously still physically capable of playing, was still quick, was still sharp, all that. This year, you want to, I can concede to maybe a little bit more of a physical decline, or at least I'll accept that if I can see it more. You know what? Let's put it this way. At 40, what was it, 42, 2019 to 2020, leaving the Patriots, going to the Buccaneers, there's really no reason other than just the number of his age to think that he had physically dropped off. This year, going on 45, 46, I'll maybe give you that. I personally think, John, I think he's dealing with a shoulder and labrum problem because if you go back to that, remember that hit that he took, and I can't even remember what game it was in, but it was early in the season where he landed on the shoulder. He ended up on the injury report very briefly, but you know, it's always kind of been a little bit shaky from there, and I think that's part of the issue more than some sort of physical decline. So I'm going to hold off judgment on that. But looking at a guy who, even at 70%, if I'll give the haters that, even at 70% is still one of the better quarterbacks in this league. So over, the beginning of the week, obviously we've been off the air since Monday. But I kind of took exception to this idea, and I always kind of laugh at or kind of chuckle at, especially former athletes, John, telling another athlete that it's time to retire.
Right.
Go home, those type of words. And I'm referencing the Marcus Spears rant that he had, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is a great take. This is a great take. And I'm thinking to myself, like, to a man, would he ever go up to Tom Brady or any athlete and tell him that, like, you need to retire? And this is, and John, I'm not asking like you wouldn't say that to my face type of tough guy talk. I'm just saying in general, like as an athlete, every athlete understands that ultimately that decision begins and ends with you, no one else. So to me, I take exception to other athletes telling others when to hang them up, and most certainly in this situation where the narrative around this idea of hanging it up was, oh, I don't want to, I don't want you to spoil my view of you. You think a 45-year-old quarterback who, like I said, is going to throw between 25 and 30 touchdowns this season and throw for 4,500 yards and doing things that no quarterback at his age or even close to his age, except for him, has ever done. You think that's a guy that needs to retire?
No, I don't think he needs to retire at all.
I know.
No.
That's more rhetorical. I want you to answer, but it's not like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, just in general. But yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's like it seems misplaced. And again, it's just another in a long line of people just wanting this guy to go away, apparently for whatever reason. So,
well, I mean, he's one of the handful of players in the NFL that everyone talks about, right? Like every one of these shows, whether it's on ESPN or Fox Sports 1, who do they talk about? They talk about the Dallas Cowboys incessantly. They talk about Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady. Now you're starting to see a little bit of Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, and the 49ers are getting some love because they look like maybe the best team in football. But it's the same 6 or 7 topics in the NFL and the same 6 or 7 topics in the NBA that just get recycled. And that's where you go. I mean, no one's really talking about the Minnesota Vikings, even though they're 11-3. It's just what is going to get most people to get excited about. And of course, Tom Brady's very polarizing. He's got his fans, but he's also got his detractors. Everyone knows him. So that's where they're going to go with this. They do this in the NBA with LeBron James, and the Lakers are, 13-18 and out of the playoff seeding right now. I think they're still going to make it as a play-in team, but everyone talks about.
Well, I'm glad you brought up LeBron because I was trying to, in some ass backwards way, try to segue into, another topic that's somewhat related because, we sit here and like I said, I mean, people are so sick apparently of Brady. They just want him to retire. And I'm sitting here thinking like, who are you, Marcus Spears? Like, who are you to tell the guy he needs to retire? Like, talking about the potential of someone retiring and saying, along the lines of, I don't, I think he might retire at the end. That's different. But to getting on camera and telling, hey man, go home type of thing. And I understand that it wasn't in like this, like really, I don't know. It wasn't like aggressive in that manner, but at the same time,
not disrespectful. Right.
Not intentionally, I don't think.
Right.
But I think it was because again, it's who are you again to suggest that, especially a player who's playing at such a high level. And like I said, I'm glad you brought up LeBron because the other thing that kind of irked me, I guess you want to say, over the last couple of days was this idea that the reason why people don't have Patrick Mahomes as their MVP favorite is because they're bored of his greatness, a la LeBron. And that again, it drives me nuts because first of all, saying that implies, John, that there have been years in the past that he deserved the MVP that he didn't. And that's just not true. 2018, he won it and he deserved it. Sure. 2019, absolutely not. 2020, which has kind of been the year that most Chiefs fans are kind of latching onto, absolutely not. I don't understand this. Like, I'm getting sick to my stomach. I've had to defend Aaron Rodgers more the last few weeks than I've ever had to do in my life. And I'm like,
Feels good.
yeah, well,
Feels good.
it does because, I'm not, I try to my objective isn't to necessarily defend one player in particular. Obviously, Brady is in the crosshairs of all these conversations. It's more or less to defend the history of the game because we're getting to the point now where we're just chalking up these accomplishments as something that they're just not. So this idea that Patrick Mahomes isn't the favorite in people's eyes solely because people are bored of his greatness is just absurd. Like Jalen Hurts absolutely deserves to be in the conversation. He absolutely has a strong case to be made, especially John, if they go 16-1. And this team ties the Patriots record for most wins in a regular season. Now, like, again, we understand 16-0 versus 16-1. You're always going to have interfighting between Patriots and Eagles fans. And, Patriots fans will have a right to, voice their opinion on that matter. But it doesn't change the fact that you have a team that goes 16-1, has been the best start to finish, and is very likely going to get the 1 seed in the conference. We don't even know what Kansas City is going to finish. They could finish 1, but right now they're 2, and they could very well finish 3rd. So, this idea, again, that there's some boredom of greatness or whatever with Patrick Mahomes is just absurd. It's part of this echo chamber that the media has created, that they're the ones that like really fuel it. Okay. So no one talks about Patrick Mahomes. Yes, everyone talks about Patrick Mahomes. If you suggest that, then again, you're living in this weird reality that apparently you've created to help push this narrative that the guy is doing things like we talk about all the time that have never been done before. No, they have been. It's not to say that he's not doing great things. It's just let's not completely dismiss the history of the NFL. There's a long history here that has a lot of great moments and a lot of great players. If anything, John, I mean, this is the thing. If anything, if anyone's greatness was caused boredom and caused him to miss MVPs, it was Tom Brady. Like people have in their mind that like right now, like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is clearly the front runner because he has the lead and these stats, and it's like we literally just saw last year that apparently that doesn't matter. So let's not think of that as some like defining characteristic of an MVP because clearly, like I said, last year Tom Brady was Patrick Mahomes. Like they're going to finish with nearly identical stat lines from 2021 Tom Brady and 2022 Patrick Mahomes. And people are now looking at it as an injustice that anyone is being talked about other than Patrick Mahomes for MVP. And I'm just sitting here saying, like, let's cool off on the hyperbole just for like a season. Like, give me a break for like a few weeks. Like, not everything has to be, like I said, the greatest here, the greatest that, and save me this. The only reason people aren't voting for Patrick Mahomes is because of boredom. No, it's because Jalen Hurts offers up a very, very strong case, and quite frankly, a very legitimate case to be MVP. So again, I'm going nuts from this media commentary, John. I can't handle it anymore. It's too.
Yes, you are going nuts.
I am. I'm losing it.
The thing is the previous 3 seasons when Mahomes didn't win the MVP. 2019, Lamar Jackson was unanimous as MVP. The following year, Aaron Rodgers was nearly unanimous as MVP. In fact, it was Josh Allen who finished second, not Patrick Mahomes. And then last year, it was Rodgers, Brady. I believe Burrow got some love because he turned around the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's not as if he's finishing a close second and he's being robbed of this award, right? So, and also you're belittling the voters in this situation. Look, Wayne Gretzky won 8 straight NHL MVPs, right? He won the Hart Trophy 8 straight years. There could have been fatigue there, but the guy deserved it, right? Mm-hmm. Barry Bonds won 4 straight National League MVPs between 2001, 2004. There could have been fatigue there. Plus, everyone hated the guy, but yet they voted for him. I don't think there's like some master conspiracy to not give the MVP to Patrick Mahomes. He's been one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks every single year, but that doesn't mean he's the MVP every single year. And just look at, Drew Brees. I mean, we have a disagreement on how great he is. Never won an MVP. Russell Wilson, darn good quarterback, never won an MVP. It's not easy to win MVP. As great as Brady is, he's won 3. Rodgers has won 4. Manning's won 5. So, it's not easy to win these awards. And I'm sure he'll win another one somewhere down the road. Although, the depth at quarterback, especially among the great young quarterbacks, is pretty impressive when you got Burrow and Josh Allen. And look, within a year or two, Trevor Lawrence is going to be in the discussion as well, because he's certainly starting to show why he was the first overall pick and looked at as the best prospect to come out of college football, maybe since John Elway. But yeah, I mean, it gets kind of tiring. You're belittling the voters, and you're also belittling the person who won the MVP. I mean, Lamar Jackson deserved that MVP. Do we think he's 100%. The best quarterback in football? No, the guy was like off the charts that year. They went 14-2. He was top 5 in rushing. He threw very few interceptions, over 30 touchdown passes. He had a better year than Cam Newton had in 2015, right? And Cam Newton was MVP that year, deservedly so. It's a one-year award. It's not a lifetime achievement award. It's like you were the MVP of the NFL in a given year. And I think, look, Mahomes is right there with Jalen Hurts. They're probably 1-2 at this point. And what happens the next 3 weeks will determine who wins that award. I mean, if Philadelphia decides to rest Hurts for a week or two, that may impact the award a little bit and swing it in favor of Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, there's no fatigue over this. He's a great quarterback. No one's doubting that. But, is he the MVP every year? No.
Yeah, and again, the response I got from kind of the tweet and the reaction, the original thought process was, this is, he's having another great season and people are just treating it as ho-hum. And I'm just like, no one is. you understand, like, no one is treating it as ho-hum. No one's ignoring it. No one's not talking about him. Like, I mean, people talk about him, to the point of like I said, I don't need to hear about a flip pass being Mahomes like when these get done all the time. Like that's what's nauseating. That's what's exhausting about everything when it comes to it. And again, when it comes to this idea that he's somehow become LeBron, and this is the other part of the discussion where it drives me nuts. It's like giving credit for doing something like how. Like people are, for example, people talk about the Kansas City Chiefs 4 straight AFC championship games. Like, it's a great thing, no doubt about it. And they're talking about it as if it's one of the greatest accomplishments in NFL history. And I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm like, how can it be like revered so much? And this kind of gets into that whole greatest of all time debate when it comes to quarterbacks, because people will insist that Patrick Mahomes can achieve half of what Tom Brady does and still have a case. Well, in this case, the Kansas City Chiefs, their streak had overlapped the tail end of 8 straight AFC championship games for the Patriots, including in the 5 years, that overlapping stretch where they went to 4 Super Bowls in 5 seasons and won 3 of them. Mm-hmm. How on earth does that compare? It doesn't. But people talk about the Chiefs' recent run. I mean, we go back a couple of weeks ago when that whole dynasty, someone said dynasty with him, and I almost like fell out of my chair because I'm like, all right, that's it. This might be the end of reasonable, rational sports commentary, because we're just lowering the bar. If that's the case, if your standards are so low that that's great, then, well, okay, I guess I can't change your mind, but you're going to cheapen pretty much everything else. So it's a weird place that we're in right now, John, because the discussion points, the talking points don't necessarily reflect what reality is.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the early 2000s. The Philadelphia Eagles went to 4 straight NFC championship games, right? They won one of them, got to the Super Bowl, lost to the Patriots. Maybe it's an Andy Reid thing. 5 and 6 years, right? Maybe it's an Andy Reid thing where, he gets to the conference championship and then see what happens. And he's a great coach. No one's doubting that. But to compare Mahomes to LeBron, Mahomes has gone to 4 straight AFC championship games, won 2, won a Super Bowl. That's darn impressive. LeBron James went to 8 straight finals.
Yeah.
8 straight finals. Yeah. I mean, he won 3, probably should have won 1 or 2 more, I think. but nonetheless, going 8 straight finals, I don't care who you are, what sport you're playing. That's crazy. So to compare the two is just not fair to LeBron.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's just a pattern that we're seeing now with, if you're not like buying into or jumping into the hype train with Mahomes, and you're either a hater or you're bored with greatness or whatever, because every day it's like, and then this is the great circular logic that people debate, and it's like, people who commentate on these things and discuss these things will sit here and make all the hyperbolic arguments, the greatest this, the greatest that, use every cliche in the book. And then when someone like myself, pushes back, and it's like, well, why do you think, this is the best thing? They compare him to Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, which again is just absurd at this point, but people are still going to do it. And then they use those comparisons as evidence as to why it's legitimate. Like, well, like he keeps getting compared to these guys. What do you think that means? Well, I think that means you're out of your freaking mind, is what it is. But they're going to use that as like, well, see, he wouldn't be compared if it wasn't. And it's like this circular, like where they're proofing their own theory with other theories of their own. I don't know. I'm my mind's going to mush right now, but I think you can understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, it's still a ways away. And I think the player you could compare cross sport to Mahomes maybe is Giannis, right? And right now, Giannis, I believe, is the best player in the world. I think Mahomes, you can make a case he's the best quarterback in the league. They both have a championship. Giannis has 2 MVPs. Mahomes has 1. No one's comparing Giannis to LeBron or Michael Jordan. No one's saying, well, Giannis is better than Jordan and better than LeBron. I mean, maybe someday he'll get into that discussion. To put Mahomes, with Brady and Manning is lunacy right now. But I think that's a fair comparison in terms of young guys that are ascending, that are right there at the top, but still have a lot to accomplish before we compare them to all-time greats.
Well, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier too. I mean, the young quarterback regime is only getting better. So, and I've kind of, my theory is that, and again, this isn't trying to downplay anything that Kansas City does. I look at it more like trying to balance it out a little bit here, John. They, and give credit where credit's due, took advantage of a transitioning AFC. And I've said this multiple times. You can't, you don't have to face the Patriots, okay? Like you did, and you lost. So, that was AFC Championship game number 1. The Patriots were obviously done after that. 2019, they didn't even make it past the divisional round. Brady's gone. The Patriots are what they are now. They're just another team in the AFC. Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen yet. Joe Burrow wasn't even in the league. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they were good, but your biggest competition was Baker Mayfield and the Browns and, teams like that. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, good for Kansas City for taking advantage of that. But as we've seen the last couple of years, a underwhelming Titans team finished with a better regular season. I don't think Kansas City is going to get the 1 seed this year. And quite frankly, I don't see them winning 4 games in a row against playoff teams to win a Super Bowl. So, this 4 straight AFC Championship game streak may very well end especially if they have to go up against Cincinnati in the divisional round. So I don't I caution Chiefs fans all the time that are chalking them up for 4, 5, 6 Super Bowls or perennial AFC Championship games. And this is what it's going to be like for the next 10 years. And I mentioned it, I think on Monday, very similar competition shaping up for the Chiefs in the AFC like the Patriots had. The only difference, the Patriots dealt with their biggest rivalries, with the exception of, you can point to Baltimore and say maybe, they gave them the biggest struggles, but at the end of the day, they kind of, towards the end, really ran away from that. Pittsburgh, we know, unbelievable team in the early 2000s into 2010s. They went to 3 Super Bowls, won 2. They were an absolute mismatch for the New England Patriots. Never once was I ever concerned about a Patriots and Steelers matchup. And kind of the same way with the Colts, only, the Peyton Manning factor obviously was huge. And that was something where you sat and you were like, man, I can't believe that. But for the most part, they handled the Colts. So again, I'm looking at right now, I know it's a small sample size, but 1-6 or 1-5 against the Bengals and Bills. Those two teams are only getting better. So I look at this grasp or this stranglehold, quote unquote, that they have on the AFC, and I say I don't know how much of a stranglehold it is, especially when you can very legitimately make the case that they're not even the best team in the AFC this year.
Oh, for sure. I mean, right now Buffalo's the number 1 seed. Buffalo plays Cincinnati next week, so someone's going to lose that game. Kansas City could still sneak into the 1 seed if Cincinnati beats Buffalo and Kansas City wins out. Then Kansas City will be the 1 seed. That is something that they need a little bit of help from Cincinnati to beat Buffalo. But those are the 3 teams we look at in the AFC that are just better than everyone else. And I look at there's 6 quarterbacks in the AFC that look to be elite right now or on the verge of being elite. And obviously, Pro, Allen, Mahomes. And then the next tier would be Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. Now, they still have to accomplish things to get to that level, but it seems like they have the talent and the buy-in, and now they're being surrounded by better offensive weapons and maybe in case of the Chargers, better coaching eventually. But yeah, I mean, there's so much depth now at that position in the AFC compared to the NFC where, you know, Brady and Rodgers are old and Jalen Hurts, I think, has established himself as the best quarterback in the NFC. It's just not as deep at that position in the NFC. But even to make a case more so for Jalen Hurts, he's playing in a tougher division than Patrick Mahomes. Now, at the beginning of the season, we all thought the AFC West was going to be loaded. Well, it's not. And you look at the NFC East, you know, Dallas, although they constantly step on their own, you know what, is still pretty darn good. And right now, if the season ended, Washington and the Giants, all 4 teams in the NFC East would qualify for the playoffs, and there's Philadelphia winning that division.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's true, and I don't think a strength of schedule necessarily plays too much into the actual MVP debate. I know people will try to use that. I don't think people are like, well, what was their strength of schedule? Because I think at the end of the day, you know, these are all NFL teams. You know what I mean? You don't lose points for doing it against, you know, team A, B, or C, and gain points for D, E, and F. But yeah, I mean, look, that's going back to the original point of this conversation was it's absurd to suggest the only reason people are looking at Jalen Hurts is because of Mahomes fatigue. No, it's because he's a very legitimate MVP MVP candidate. And like I said, I mean, you're talking about a team that, I mean, talk about ho-hum and not being mentioned, could potentially win 16 games, something that's, like I said, has only been done once in this league. And, you know, okay, 17 game schedule, I get it, but how often did teams go out and win 15 games and go 15-1? Not that often. And more, you talk about Cam Newton, that's what they did in 2015, 15-1, and he ran away with that MVP race. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but it's just getting exhausting dealing with this every single day. Every single day listening to just what I think is devaluing pretty much everything that's happened before with this type of commentary. It's not just me disagreeing with them or whatever. So, all right, before we go, real quick, I got to bring up your Giants, John. What happened, man? You had Carlos Correa locked up, and you know, I don't think, you know, give it a couple of years and this Correa deal with the Mets is going to look terrible. But you had for about 12 hours Aaron Judge. That didn't happen. This time you had 6 days worth of Carlos Correa, and then you wake up in the middle of the night only to find out he is a New York Met for the next 12 years. Thoughts, concerns? Where do the Giants go from here?
Yeah, I mean, they're in a division where the Dodgers and the Padres spend freely. They're also in a league where the Mets spend more than the Dodgers and Padres. I mean, the Mets are going to have about a $380 million payroll. With the luxury tax, it's going to be close to $500 million a year. And Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, couldn't care less. He's just throwing money at it. Even if he loses $100 million a year owning this baseball team, it's not really going to bother his bottom line because we're talking about a guy worth $17 billion. But as far as the Giants are concerned, they signed Correa as the second choice after not getting Aaron Judge. And I think they got buyer's remorse and looked at the length of the contract, the financial outlay, and then they came up with some crazy excuse that there was a medical concern from 2014, 8 years ago, that had to do with his foot. I mean, that's a great way to get out of the deal. I just get the idea that ownership wanted him because ownership needs a star there, someone that can fill seats. And I think that the baseball ops pushed back and may have, you know, protested this and said, this is going to be way too much money and it's going to handcuff us what we can do in the future to build a real baseball team. And ownership gave in to, as we call them, the baseball nerds, who said that this is too much money for a player of this caliber. Who I think Correa is an excellent player, but is he a $300 million player? Look, I don't know who is, but they just decided not to go in on it, and Steve Cohen was right there with the big checkbook. So yeah, it is strange because clearly the Giants now are being lapped by the Dodgers and Padres in their own division. I mean, they did have the best record in baseball 2 years ago, but that was kind of a shock. Everything just fell into place for them. They also lost one of their best pitchers to free agency, so they look like a middling team again. And how they bounce back and get into the fray is going to be difficult. I mean, you can develop players. That takes a while. You make decent trades, but at times you got to, go heavy and bring in a superstar. And they were in on two of them, actually looked like they had one of them, and then they didn't. So a weird place for the Giants right now.
Yeah, and we know the economy of baseball is you have to spend money to win in this league.
Yeah.
As much as the Rays have been praised and all that, what have they done? Gone to a couple World Series? Great. You don't hang well, I guess you kind of do hang banners for that, but you know what I mean. You're not having anniversary teams, coming back like 25 years after when we got smoked in the World Series, but we had a very low payroll. It's just in this league. Like, look, I have no problems with billionaires spending their money ridiculously. Like, I'm all for it. It's not my money, and they have too much of it as it is. So let them just throw money around. And I've never been opposed to like teams doing this because it just makes it that much better when things don't go their way and they still have that payroll. Because at the end of the day, if the Mets don't win a World Series, well, what did you really, get out of it? Some excitement, sure, but. All right, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow, Festivus. We will celebrate, and of course, we will give our picks for the entire Saturday and Sunday lineup that we have coming up here in the NFL. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon.